the Mexican Porphyria Society was founded in May of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
We founded it because it had become unbearable to see what was happening with regards to rare diseases in our country.
There's so many things we could talk about, but I know that we wanted to really focus on what the issues that Mexico is facing as far as access to treatment.
Everybody in every moment of life, even the most amazing doctors or the most amazing lawyers, make mistakes. So if we're expecting a road, because I had porphyria, that the road ahead of me is not without its learning process, it couldn't be farther from the truth. No, you walk down this doing with the best intention at heart, and if you follow that, then the mistakes will be for learning, not for getting you to stop helping.
I think a lot of that too, I mean, just going back to how this whole process is and how just having an association in Mexico is just the power of asking for help.
Yes.
I think even us as patients on a lot of episodes that we talk about, it's just, we're just so stubborn.
Yeah.
Welcome to Rarely Discussed, an American Porphyria Foundation podcast with your hosts, Andrew McManamon
And Nicole Castellano.
We have porphyria, a rare disease. Rare diseases differ greatly but share many similarities in how they affect our lives.
Being rare can feel lonely and isolating, but we're stronger together. Join us in meaningful interviews with porphyria and rare disease experts and the patients and families impacted as we connect, learn, and heal together.
We'll talk diagnosis, treatment, pain, mental health, managing daily life, and everything rare. Welcome to Rarely Discussed. We are on episode number 12, and we are still chilling in Spain, Pamplona, Spain, for the Porphyria Conference. And of course, as always, Nicole, you got to introduce our special guest.
Yes, so today we have Kika Shabot, who is the president of the Mexican Porphyria Society. She lives in Mexico City, and she's also the vice president of the Global Porphyria Advocacy Coalition, or GPAC for short. And she also has AIP. And so, Kika, thank you so much for being here today. I know that we could talk for about 10 hours, so we'll try to keep not keep you here too long.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it very much.
That's great. I wanted to, you and I have talked a lot about in the past. I know you have AIP and your daughter has AIP, and we have so many things we could talk about, but I know that we wanted to really focus on what the issues that Mexico is facing as far as access to treatment. And I know that we all, especially being at GPAC, we're always talking about working together, creating awareness and all those things. But as we've found, and I actually mentioned it yesterday when we were talking to Nadia, how it's someone had to walk like 2 hours to their treatment. I can't even conceive of having to walk. Yes. I can't even drive sometimes. So I just wanted, if you could maybe just kind of outline a little bit the different challenges that you've seen, because you are part of GPAC, you see what everybody else is doing. And then also, at some point I wanted to see if we can talk about the work that you and Dr. Kirshanovich and the society has done to kind of get Panhematin back. So I know that's a lot, so just kind of start.
Yeah. I think it's important. I'll try to give like a general picture, and then I'll go into specifics of the things that you just mentioned. So the Mexican Porphyria Society was founded in May of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
We founded it because it had become unbearable to see what was happening with regards to rare diseases in our country. And of course, because I have AIP, and I was very, very lucky to be diagnosed, I don't know if the word is early on, but in my second attack.
Mm-hmm.
I have sheer luck. My process was really blessed, and that created also a great stepping stone for my daughter to be diagnosed once, for some reason, her porphyria turned on, because she had been completely unsymptomatic until that time. Having said that, I studied international and political science a long time ago, but I had in
Among other things.
Among other
Yeah.
She has four
Several
masters.
things.
She has 4 master's degrees. We're a very smart woman here.
But so I was in tune, and I knew that I acknowledged the reality of my country always, and I had been fortunate enough to travel in Central America, Latin America, and I knew the conditions there, not for porphyria, but the condition, just the living conditions.
Sure.
And as we founded the society, the organization, I started getting involved more in the worldview of porphyria and learned about the Global Porphyria Coalition. I learned what an advocacy group does. I had the blessing of having a wonderful mentor, Desiree Lyon, your past president, and she guided me step by step on what was needed. The first challenge that we approached was the fact that porphyria was not recognized as a rare disease in our country. Even from there, I could see the ocean between being in a first world country and being in a third world country. The processes, the way that public health works, even with its differences, and I know that every country faces its challenges, whether it be from the first world or the third world, with regards to public health. But having said that, out of the 7,000 rare diseases that are now known, 7,000 and something, in Mexico we had 20 that were recognized. So I visualized this long road ahead, not knowing which way to go, and I started first trying to establish a very healthy society. So I got a team together, and the laws in Mexico with regards to donation societies changed, and I realized that we were going to have to work in a way that no other society works. So I'm talking about two different things, but they're, believe me, they're connected. So in order to be productive, efficient, and achieve our goals, I first created two platforms. One was the working mechanism. So we had a treasurer, we have an assistant that I can go to and ask for things. I had the possibility of asking people that have skills to work pro bono and explain what I was doing. And for some reason, I still believe that humanity is blessed, and humanity comes together in difficult times. And I based a lot of what I did on that, because when you ask for help, you will probably receive that help that you ask for, because it's our nature to help each other out. So I had somebody help me with social media, because I knew nothing about. And I had somebody help me with a database, because I didn't know how to build a database. And I had another person donate their time legally to set up a very strong and very a very organized society that is based on the normal structure of having president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, advisors, and we legalized it in Mexico, and he worked pro bono also. So I sort of approached people.
Can I ask a question? Were some of these people, I know possibly the attorney, I may know if it's the same one, are they family members or people that have porphyria as well, or just some outside people as well that kind of stepped in? Or
No,
both?
at this point there were no family members. These were people that, when I explained the need, they said I would be very happy to offer my services to help a society that is helping people. It doesn't matter if it's a rare condition. They didn't want to really know a lot about that. They just really wanted to help, and so I thought, oh, this is interesting. I had learned about the other associations, and I realized that a lot of the other associations had started out differently, first getting a type of budget and income, and then from there they started working. And for Mexico, that was not applicable. So I said, okay, I need a method, I need a strategy that is not based on a budget. How am I going to do it? And I said, I'm just gonna ask for help. I'm gonna ask humans to help, and I know that I can trust them. So the next thing that for me was very important is that once I got up the social media running, patients started calling me because I put up my private phone. So people were writing to me and calling me and asking for the porphyria information, and I was really taken aback that in I think 3 months we already had 10 patients or something like that. So I said, okay, I need doctors, I need specialists. And I knew some, but I didn't know the context of all of Mexico. Mexico is an enormous country. Population-wise, we have 180 million people. Just the city, the capital, has something around between, I think, 25 and 28 million, which is the population of some countries.
Yeah.
So this is just the city. So it was a little bit overwhelming, but I thought I can find doctors in 28 million, no? People. So hopefully. And I started calling doctors that I knew had worked with either 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, or 7 porphyria patients. And when I told them, this is what I'm doing, we can't pay you. Would you care to give an opinion? Would you care to have an interconsultation with the appointed health practitioner? And they all said yes. And they said that they would work pro bono without charging. And so I asked them if they wanted to form a committee of specialists, and they said yes. And I started sending them all the publications that had already been approved by different authorities with regards to porphyria, and they became very knowledgeable. So now we have a group of 12 specialists dealing from everything from ER, internal medicine, psychiatry, hematology, dermatology, hepatology, nephrology, gastrointestinal, gynecological. So we covered
and genetic as well. Right?
Genetic. What the most important doctor that has contributed his time, his wisdom, his guidance has been Dr. Johnny Karsenovich. He's a geneticist. He has been able to diagnose patients that have not been diagnosed in more than 20 years. He's just an amazing physician.
He truly is. I mean, he's on the APF Scientific Advisory Board, and anytime I have a question, it's not just great that he's helping. It's like on it, and he sends me like a video thing, he explains it and everything, and he's just the nicest. When we did the Spanish speaking Zoom, he's incredible.
Yeah,
you're so lucky that you work a little bit more closely with him, but he's wonderful.
He has the oath of being a doctor first and foremost, and his it doesn't matter how busy he is, because he has 2 different offices or consultation rooms, and he travels from one end of the city to another, but he's available. And if he's not available exactly at the time that you need him, he'll tell you, okay, so I'm available at this time or this time or this time. And after that, I will get back to the initial subject, which is that porphyria was not recognized. But there was something really interesting, specific to Mexico, which is a very important doctor also in Mexico, another geneticist, had been able to get the important treatment for when an attack is activated or somebody's in a crisis, which is a type of hematin or heme, to be accepted into the national list of approved drugs. So imagine this information. So we have the medication, but because the disease is not recognized, you do not get the medication. So why have the medication if you're not being recognized?
I was just surprised when you said that. Yeah.
Nobody's getting the medication because it's not a recognized disease. So I hired some lawyers. hired means I asked, begged, and pleaded for somebody to help me that would not charge us for his services. And I got 2 lawyers that did all the necessary paperwork and went to Congress and went to the courts and basically pressured the government into recognizing porphyria to be sorry for the repetition, to be in this list of recognized rare diseases.
Sure.
And that happened in April of this year, after a year and a half of going to meetings, going in interviews, appealing to not only social media, but all of the radio channels, the TV channels, and usually when you give them a topic that they have not talked about, they will interview you and they will want to find out. So...
And how many did, I think it's an enormous amount. How many, I mean, it was a lot.
It was like 16 radio interviews and maybe 6 or 7 TV interviews on different channels. And I don't know if it sounds like a lot, but it certainly felt like a lot.
It sounds like a lot.
It sounded like a lot to me. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, but but it was
It's huge.
effective. It was effective.
It was effective. So the government put out a new list, and I think now we have 50 or 70. I'm not completely sure on that number, and I don't want to give false information, but
a lot.
something a lot. The difference from 7 or 20 to 50 or 60 is enormous with regards to the recognition of rare diseases. So now we had the medication in the national list, and porphyria was recognized. So when patients went to the public hospitals, they asked for the treatment, and what happened? It was denied. Because it so happens that at that point, to have a drug on the national list did not mean that it was on the list of medications approved in the public health system. So I didn't, at first I didn't understand it. And then I said,
You would think
okay.
when you hear it's approved for
It's
use for
approved.
this and the disease is
It's
approved, boom.
I thought I was,
You're like,
it was
woo!
finished. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, we won, the race has finished.
Now
let's
here's
treat
another
our
mountain
patients.
for you to climb.
So I talked to the lawyers, and basically we sued the public health system. And once we sued them, we won for one patient, and she was authorized and she was awarded. It's not an award note, but she was granted the medication. It saved her life, and from there we knew that every time that we presented the papers of the lawsuit, the public health system would have no other means or recourse except to authorize using the medication. And that has been the focus of our work as of yet. We have now are facing the challenge of trying to understand how many patients have not been diagnosed and tested. Because with the numbers that I gave you with regards to the Mexican population, to have 150 patients right now is unrepresentative of the reality of living in a third world country. And there's a lot of cultural, socioeconomic situations that must be taken into account. But we live in countries that are very influenced by elders, by society. So usually to have a disease is a disgrace. It's something that people hide. It's something that people do not want to talk about. So my efforts now will be to devise a plan of, I don't know if it's going to be door to door, if it's going to be through community services, or how to get porphyria known, to let them know that people are suffering greatly, that it's not something in their head, that they're not making it up, that porphyria exists, that it's real, and it's not something that you can see, which is, I think, one of the most important things that people can talk about with porphyria.
Yeah.
No, that it's a disease that you can't see. But
You
the
look
symptoms
fine.
are real, you look fine, but you're suffering worse than many other diseases because it's now known that the pain that porphyria causes is one of the worst pains that that people can go through with regards to diseases.
One doctor that I know Desiree spoke with explained, he was a neurologist, he said, porphyria pain is not pain, it's torture.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty,
Spot on.
you know,
Exactly.
I always think of that when these types of things come up because it was just right on the nose.
Exactly. So, what I would like to relay to you is that it doesn't matter if you cannot do things the way that are intended to. I know that to create a society you need a budget. I know that you need finances in order to accomplish projects. But when you face the challenge of not being able to do it the normal way or the prescribed way, you have to think out of the box. You have to look at options. It doesn't matter if you start doing it in your society. It doesn't matter if you ask for help and people respond. Doors will open. And I think that if you trust, I don't know the name in English, but if you trust the human race because we are good and kind, and if you appeal to that, people will help, and they will do it with grace, and they will do it in the best way that they know how. So it's also important to see what are the fortitudes of each person to see how they can help you, because you can't ask a lawyer to do a database, right? But if you ask a lawyer to get a medication for somebody, he will do the necessary due diligence and process in order to get the medication for people. We have an extraordinary team now that if I pick up the phone or send them a message, they will respond. Whether it be the specialist committee saying, look, I have a patient, what can we do? And they'll offer their services. Or if I call the lawyer and say, somebody's not getting the medication, he will get right on it, and he will respond, and he will talk to the parents and let them know that he's on their team. And if we need to speak to the pharmaceutical companies in Mexico, we will speak to them. And even the pharmaceutical companies, which are sometimes known for the reputation of not caring for patients, in this case, it's proven to not be true.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical companies have created medications that help people with rare diseases, and the gratitude that I feel for them is immense, because they're available, they're committed to helping people in suffering. So I think that is the most important message that I can relay with regards to creating an organization that helps people with a rare disease. I also think that it's important to talk about the fact that porphyria is not the worst disease. It's one of the worst diseases. So if we can also work with other associations, organizations of other rare diseases, or the larger associations that encompass all rare diseases, I think that we have to unite and create a policy where we are recognized regardless of the title of our disease, just because all people suffer from rare diseases. And we all suffer from the same things. Getting diagnosed, how to get to a place of getting diagnosed, because you mentioned the 2 hours. Yeah. This is a reality from Mexico all the way down to Patagonia, to the end of Argentina.
Do you find any difference in the regions? Are there some? I know there are different, like Puebla. There are different places in Mexico, like regions. Like I would say, do you find that some regions are more likely to say, "No, I see you suffering. This is here. Let's do it." And are there some that say, "Well, I see you have this thing for this patient, but that's just for that patient. Now where's the one for this patient?" Do you find that, or is it just it's just an individual thing for each case?
I don't know really how to respond to your question. I have been in meetings and in situations where I see people that are diagnosed with other rare conditions, and I would not like to be the one deciding whom to give the medication to. It's heart wrenching to be in that decision.
But here
In
in
that
the
position.
U.S., or not here in Spain, but in the U.S., if the doctor does prescribe, decides that this patient has whatever disease it is, and that this is the treatment they want to give them, they may, since it's rare, they may have trouble accessing it, and we help with that. But the fact that there, it sounds like they may, even though they say yes, I want to prescribe this, that it's not necessarily that easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy. How do you decide? There's a budget. There's a certain amount of money in third world countries. Whom do you give the medication to? A person that has the most possibility of living a long life, or a person who's about to die? Those are moral questions, and I don't feel that I am capable of making that decision.
And for just not saying here, but for anyone watching, it may sound dramatic.
It is
Someone can die. Then we have a few months ago in Costa Rica, the young girl, 23 years old,
We worked for 3 weeks.
and we did all over the world. We all came together to help, and it just didn't get done fast enough, and she passed away. So what I know, sometimes when you say if you don't get the medication, you're going to die. I know some people may think, oh, it's kind of dramatic, but it can happen, and it's not going to happen every time someone's in an attack, but it can happen every time someone's in an attack.
Yeah, it can happen.
It's so sad.
And it was devastating. It stopped me in my tracks. I had to take a step back, reprioritize, make a conscious decision of going forward, and keep on dedicating part of my life to helping people with porphyria. But you also have to deal with grief, and you have to deal with everything that makes life what it is, and how you question certain things about the irrationality of it all, of having labs create medicine that people can't pay for, of not having access to being diagnosed when you know that the cost of getting the lab work done is something ridiculous. How the world works is something that can affect me to a degree where it can paralyze me, or it can motivate me. And sometimes I get paralyzed, and sometimes I don't know how to keep going. But then a call comes, and somebody needs help, and you're off, and you're trying to see how you can help that person, whether it be to get them out of bed and start walking, get them to down a liter of glucose that helps porphyria in an acute crisis, whether it be to just hold their hand or hold their caretaker's hand, and you get out of bed and you do it. Because I truly believe that you can make the decision every minute of your life. But the only way to actually action the will of wanting to help is to just do it. It doesn't matter if you have a plan or you don't have a plan.
Just starting, and
Offer
these
your
steps
services.
just kind of start coming in front of you, and you just
Exactly.
I know you.
Things will appear, and then you act, and then another, and you might make a mistake. I've made mistakes with regards to trying to help patients and situations that certainly made me question what I was doing, but I think that everybody in every moment of life, even the most amazing doctors or the most amazing lawyers, make mistakes. So if we're expecting a road, because I had porphyria, that the road ahead of me is not without its learning process, it couldn't be farther from the truth. No, you walk down this doing with the best intention at heart, and if you follow that, then the mistakes will be for learning, not for getting you to stop helping.
I think a lot of that too, I mean, just going back to how this whole process is and how just having an association in Mexico is just the power of asking for help.
Yes.
I think even us as patients on a lot of episodes that we talk about is just, we're just so stubborn.
Yeah.
Every single one of us is so stubborn until we can't be.
We don't want to need the help.
Exactly.
In even dairy, we push ourselves, we do all these things, and it's like we feel like we should have to do it, but you are an extreme. We all need to learn to ask for help, but you're an extreme case where you don't have another option, and you found this innovative way to be a change maker, and to really just you've moved mountains, and it may. I know you're very humble, so you may not want me to say that, but it's true, and it's in a very short amount of time. It inspires me. I've come into the APF. It's very well known. Desiree did all this work for almost 44 years.
Yes.
It's everything's there, kind of. It's set, and I have my vision with how to kind of move forward and everything like that. And I'm very supported by the board and everything. But to be able to, who are we talking to? That Nadia was saying, if there's a framework, it's easy to start, but there is no frame. There's no map for you. There's nothing to say, okay, this, you can look at it. Everyone else was able to start with that traditional and do the budget and everything, and you can. And I just find it so incredible that you find a way to do it, and you don't back down.
No, I don't.
Anyone that knows Kika, you do not back down.
I don't back down.
But you don't lose your mind either. You're very smart. The way you're logical, and you are vulnerable, and that's what I find, and I think that those things, obviously I'm not with you every day, but I see these things.
I wish we were.
I know.
Every day. It would be
I
amazing.
know, right? It would be wonderful. So yes, but anyway, so I didn't mean to, but it's true. It's a lot, and I'm amazed.
Thank you. I'm not going to go into the cliche that I didn't do it by myself, but I think it's very important to say that the most important thing about humility is to know that there are things that we don't know, and that we need to approach people saying, I don't know, please help me, from there. Because sometimes people ask for help thinking that they know. It's sometimes like, I don't know if you've been in situations where you ask a question, but you know the answer, just to hear it,
right.
to confirm something. In this case, I didn't know. So I think that's the most important part, to create relationships based on this vulnerability and this trust of being very sincere. I'm asking you not because I know how, it's because I don't have the resources to do that. Please help me. So the people that have helped the Mexican Porphyria Society are the specialists, whether it be in law, in medicine, in computer science, in social media, because I trust that they have the tools and the knowledge to share. And then you touch the fiber in somebody, in another human, so that they respond from a place of trust and a place of confidence, because they know what they're doing. I'm not asking the doctor to do a social media page just because he's very willing to help. So you have to be that clear, you know. I'm very confident that everybody has a special skill set. It doesn't matter in what. And if you can get in tune to that person and their skill set, whether it be going to visit patients in hospitals, because there's a person now in our group that she says, I'll just go and sit down with her parents, and that's her skill set. That's what we take into consideration when we ask her to please go and support somebody.
Yeah.
So there are no rules. I repeat, I've said it before. The cliche of not taking no for an answer is important because doors have closed and they have not been opened again.
And I think this
I've
goes
stepped
for
on
patients.
some toes.
Yeah, it goes for patients not giving up, and for advocacy leaders and
Yes.
doctors that need to, especially in Mexico or Costa Rica, where their hands are tied and they're not allowed to do something.
Yes, I think that it's important to get the reality of the situation that you're in firmly diagnosed and then proceed from there. So Mexico has its reality. We have been trying to help some patients in Cuba. We had the situation in Costa Rica. There are patients in Honduras. There are patients in El Salvador. There are patients in Colombia. Colombia has a very robust and a very well organized porphyria team, whether it be the societies or the associations, the doctors, the pharmaceutical companies. They're up and running. But we're all working in an isolated way. And I keep saying we need to integrate. We need to see where things are not working. No, I have patients that in the family they share their cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I have patients that have to walk to the nearest health clinic that probably doesn't even have aspirin. I have patients that don't have cars. I have patients that will get on an animal to get to the clinic, a donkey, a horse. The reality of the world is not what we perceive, it's what we learn. And if we're not open to that learning process, we probably will not be effective. So I think that's the most important thing, to know that we do not know. But in the learning process, we keep going forward, even if sometimes we make mistakes and we become uncertain with what we're doing or on our path, even if sometimes the world is not fair, which is quite devastating. But you keep on seeing that the situation will arise and what is needed will appear, and then you act. And I think that is the most important message I can share with regards to how the Mexican Porphyria Society works.
And you said that too. You said you may not even know which step, but if you just start, and again, like you said, starting from where you're at, it doesn't matter where that is.
It does not.
And unfortunately, I mean, I would think, and you would correct me if I'm wrong, is because porphyria is so individualized, even within the same type of porphyria, you have patients that have so many different symptoms, first of all, and then also life situations and geographical situations and access to maybe a specialist and things like that. Do you find that the doctors are just, we have a great, in the U.S., we have doctors that just jump in and obviously Dr. Krishnovich as well. So I know you have doctors, but are they pretty, even just like hematologists, hepatologists, are they getting pretty tight-knit to support each other and like to welcome a new doctor and to consult and share their information? Or is it just, or are you like, how does that work? Do you find that or do people have to kind of travel just to try to get to them to see them?
I have had doctors try to speak to somebody that is basically standing on the roof of their house to get cell reception, and try to get some type of help to these patients. whether it be to tell them to, if they're starting a crisis, to use whatever is available in that situation. Yes, so some doctors will respond, but it's always situation by situation, case by case. I don't want to generalize because I have had doctors say I can't right now. You know, it depends sometimes on the time of the year. If it's near December, they're not available. So I wish I could tell everybody to not have a porphyria attack in December.
It always happens.
Because
it's always on the weekends
it's
and during
always on the
holidays.
weekends,
Always.
always. Exactly. So I do what I can, and it's always also very important for me to let the other person know, the patient, the family, that I am just the enabler. I'm not a physician. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a nurse practitioner, and I am not able to prescribe. And sometimes that's also very important for advocacy group leader to understand their place.
Yes.
And to know that it doesn't matter how much the person in front of us is suffering, we can offer to accompany them and to stand with them, but we can't solve their suffering. Even if it makes us suffer ourselves, I don't like to say it like that because it will never be the same as somebody that is suffering, but our hands are tied, our mouth is shut, and we can only enable that person to go to the correct
like a conduit.
professional.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult because, again, I appeal to human nature, and the quality of the mother instinct. Whether it doesn't even matter if you're a woman or a man. There's an instinct of helping and easing suffering and alleviating suffering that you want to do, but you can't tell them, if I drink yogurt, it helps for me. No, it might not help for you because that's not what I'm there for. And sometimes I have to retreat, go back, and say, clarify your position so as to not create confusion.
And this is what I can do. This is what I can't
Exactly.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. This is what I am proficient at. I am an advocacy group leader. I do advocacy based on evidence. I know where I can help. I know where I can be resourceful. And that is linking a patient to be able to get diagnosis, linking a patient to a doctor, linking a patient to get treatment, but not the other way. And there are people that are suffering so greatly that they don't care if you're the correct or the indicated person. You have to respond with that level of professionalism. You can't deviate from that.
Yeah, no,
Because
it's important.
if not, you're not really an advocate.
Because, I mean, like we were talking about at lunch the other day. I mean, it's just like, I do this, but it works for me, and I think people will hang on to that still, even if you add that for me at the end.
Yeah.
And they'll try it and be like, I
But you
feel
said.
horrible, and you said it worked. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly, because you have to really be very aware of the situation that you're in. If you're speaking with a friend, you have to be responsible for everything that you say, even if it's your closest friend. And I think that we can do that. I think we can become so conscious of where we are, from where we are trying to help the person in front of us. If we are in touch with ourselves, we know if we're trying to help somebody to feel better ourselves, or if we're really getting in tune to that person. Because if we're really in tune to that person, then we can be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I will sit here beside you so that I can help you in the process of trying to find out and going
What
to the
answer
correct
is.
to the correct person. But I don't have the answers. But sometimes when we are not feeling so good about ourselves, we want to help people in order to feel good about ourselves. And that creates a tremendous amount of confusion in ourselves, in the relationship, in why we're doing it, and we can do more harm than good. And I refuse to do more harm than good as an advocacy leader.
That is
the rule.
Wow, that is. It's one of those things that's obvious, but when you put it like that, it's just so true. It's very important. You know, and you know, you have. I just want to switch gears for a second. You have a unique perspective, being in Mexico, being so close to Central and South America and everything. And I know you just took a trip to Brazil,
yes,
and you saw some different countries dealing with things, and had some. You called me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited!"
I was very excited.
So
I was very excited.
You know, and then through your work with GPAC, you know, and I think you know you're just in a unique position because you do know how things work in other places. You're forging a new path for. And there may be, and I think there are a lot of countries that are going to be able. I know a lot of countries, you know, that are struggling with, you know, in finance. I would say you have to spend money to make money. You have to have money to help. You're showing you don't necessarily, and you know, and so a lot of. I think that obviously the other leaders know what you're doing, and they're trying to learn from you. But you know, I think the fact that you unapologetically are saying, this is what, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep walking forward. And when the steps come, I'm going to take them and just decide which way to go. I might go the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But, you know, never stopping is the most important point. And I think, you know, we were also talking the other day about porphyria is a rare disease. Mm-hmm. It's a very small group of people. But when we, like with NORD or any other groups, like this Brazil, there was this, we could talk for another 2 hours about it, but there's a rare disease hospital.
Yes.
In my dream of having this rare disease panel, like once they, you know, in the hospital, they usually do the regular testing and then the autoimmune kind of line of testing. And I kept saying, there should be a rare disease test. And I know that it's hard because I don't even know how many rare diseases have tests. Mm-hmm. But you were telling me that they have one. And so I think there's just a lot of exciting things, and where you're placed, you know, you speak different languages and you just have a very objective way. I found that about you. Porphyria can get you very emotional, especially when you're talking to people that are suffering. You know, I can be a very emotional person. You feel it, you want to help. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you have to be able to say, how can I help best? And but I just think it's really neat that all these things are coming up, and we've talked about more of an integrative approach. And you know, I've been thinking about that for a long time. We've talked about it. Now we've talked to more people here, and I just think it's so exciting to start continuing to make that happen. Is that what you kind of see as well for the future? I mean, I know we talked about in Mexico specifically, there are a lot of other issues that have to be addressed before we can do that, but I think they can both be worked on simultaneously, right? I mean, don't you think?
Yes, I think you touched on a very important subject, and I would like to be clear on this. One thing is to keep on going. It doesn't matter how, but you keep working, you keep pushing buttons, you keep knocking on doors, and you keep walking. But the other thing is also to be quiet and to be still, so that you become aware of the need. Because sometimes when you keep moving, you miss a lot of the things that are appearing right before you, because sometimes you're moving really fast trying to help the patient. No?
Sure.
So I think that's also important. It's like a two-way street. There are some times where you have to move, and you have to move very quickly and very effectively. And there are other times where you just have to sit, be still, be quiet, in order to become aware of the needs that are surfacing, so that you can respond adequately. And to balance those two things out are, I think, what create effectiveness in being a supporter or an advocacy leader. The world is, this is another cliche, but the world is changing.
But it's true.
But it's true. And my trip to Brazil opened my eyes to two very important things. And that is, if we continue to segregate diseases and the need for treatment for rare diseases, I truly believe that we will be ineffective. I think that we have to know who to create alliances with in order to have a stronger voice. I don't think that we should just all shout together because possibly nothing productive will come of that. It'll
just
just be
cacophony.
noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I realize that it might not be in my generation, but to see that a country could pull together its resources to create what I believe is the first rare disease hospital that has not just the testing for the majority of rare diseases, but treatment specialists and an integrative type of healthcare where they might have psychological support, physical therapy support, social support, community activities, nutrition, and all the modalities that are needed in order to have quality of life. To know that that is really possible is inspiring for all of us. It should move us forward to a common goal. Having said that, we were on a Zoom the other day with the younger generation, and they told us about something called AI, which for me is like ABC. It's not AI. It's like you skipped some letters in there. But so we now are talking in the health care situation about AI. I know that some people, it's the only thing they talk about, and there are a lot of systems already in place. But it seems to be that there are now AI platforms where if a doctor is suspecting a rare disease, or if a patient a person is suspecting a rare disease, and they put their symptoms into this platform, the system will consider rare diseases, and there are some systems that are only considering rare diseases to see if they can help a person be closer to a diagnosis. Now I have to say, I put my symptoms in, and I got acute intermittent porphyria. And I thought, Nicole and I have been talking about this for a year, about how to get a laboratory to test for rare diseases. Well, it didn't go exactly the way that you and I wanted it to, but it seems that other people are so concerned with quality of life for people with rare diseases that they already created a platform in order to try to help people get closer to a diagnosis. I am not saying that it is infallible, that it's 100% effective. I know people that have put in their symptoms and it has not been 100% accurate, but it ruled out some things. And I think that we have to evolve with the world, and that's where the world is taking us, and that is where science is taking us, and where medicine is taking us, and we have to take advantage of that to help the patients. So I'm very excited about the future, because I think that there will probably be people training in using those platforms and those systems in order to help people and patients. And I'm hoping to be able to get in contact with that, and so that I can have it as a resource for our doctors to be able to diagnose in a more expedient way, to get treatment faster, so that people don't suffer.
Yeah. And if you think about it too, with AI, right now we're always saying there's nothing like a slogan for Porphyria Awareness Week or something. Is we have my Porphyria for the Global Porphyria Day, but we were like think Porphyria, and the great thing is that if a doctor is going to be using AI, along with all their other tools that they have, it's just an extra tool. It's not the tool. That maybe they don't have to think of it and remember from God knows how many years ago about the urine chain, or just something that makes them think about porphyria, and it, that if it comes up, they can look at it and go, test. So you're right. It is very exciting and very, very exciting. So
may we live in interesting times, it says.
Yeah.
No?
I mean, you think back to when we talk about people reading that in their textbooks and it's just a paragraph. I mean, to be able to just to punch some things into an AI chat like it's a human being, and then it'd say, you know what, here's a list of stuff, or maybe it does narrow it down all the way. Even if it is a list and you haven't crossed that bridge or looked more into it, I think it's valuable.
Even if it just gets to it's some type of metabolic something, and then you can go to a doctor that specializes in in these types of diseases. So because as we all know, and we've all heard patients, Shelley, 100 doctors. We like you said when you said you have to kind of what are the actual questions to ask. As patients, sometimes we have no idea. We see all these things that are maybe they look disconnected, or we connect them inappropriately because we're just desperate and we're trying, and we don't have the training that a doctor has. So I think it's pretty cool.
The first years that I established the society, as I was thinking of the difficult problems ahead of getting people a diagnosis, everybody was talking about awareness of the disease, and I'm 100% on board with creating awareness. But doctors have to be aware of everything, right? So I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to be aware of 7,000 rare diseases, no? And I want them to be aware of porphyria, of course. So I thought, we have to go back to the beginning, to where it's starting. So what we have to be advocating for is to change the way that they're studying medicine. And I thought, okay.
That's easy to change.
Yeah. Snap your fingers.
Yeah, no, so it was like this thing that got bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden I was thinking about going to universities and getting the internal medicine book changed and how we were going to be able to do that. And it seemed like an impossible mission, an impossible task, and that's where you get discouraged.
Right. That's where you like,
you just look up and say, somebody please help me.
There's some of those rabbit holes. Yeah,
you don't want to go down.
At some point, you have to realize, like, okay, this is something that needs to be done, but I can't solve world peace today.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll just go and make awareness. I'll work on awareness because I'm not changing how they teach medicine. No.
Right.
So it was something like that, and then a piece of me quieted down and focused on what was needed and where I could be effective. And it comes back to what we were talking about before. I just left it there on the desk. I didn't think about it a lot. I kept saying, well, maybe there could be some seminars and courses on just rare diseases because that's not happening. And I played around with that idea. But then they invited me to Brazil and they talked about AI. And so instead of having to go back to how doctors study medicine, we're going forward about the new tools that will be available to them. So it was a whole new approach to a pre-existing problem that I thought the only solution was to go back to the basics. But no, it was going forward to the future. And that just amazed me. It was like, wow, I just needed to be still for a little while in order for things to become a present and aware. And I still get goosebumps, and I still become very excited about the whole prospect of having these type of hospitals available for patients and having these tools that will help so much with suffering.
Yeah. And get that, because we're always like, we're trying to educate doctors and the primary care physicians because that's where they go first and everything. And the whole point is to, if you've got this average for acute porphyrias anyway, 15-year late diagnosis, if we can get it down to 10, 7,
Exactly.
2, that's a lightning, remember in Star Trek when they're at light speed and
Exactly.
I kind of feel like that's what this organization in Brazil has done with this.
Exactly.
And I love that they're willing to share. And so, to be a part of trying to figure out how we can, use some of those, incorporate some of the tools, and it's so exciting. But I know we could talk about this for a long time, and I know you're so busy going everywhere. But is there anything else you wanted to ask, Andrew?
No, I would just say, like, in summary, based on everything we've said, it's just a lot of it comes down to being self-aware.
It does.
just with your situation, I mean, I'm thinking in an entrepreneurial sense because I've been self-employed, and I've just said, you know what, I'm going to wear every single hat until I can't. And your approach is, I'm going to build this with the right people, build a good foundation, and then it's going to pay dividends. I mean, over that whole thing. So I think just the aspect of asking for help and being self-aware where you don't know what it is that you need to do, you find the people that do, and then to sit and listen instead of being somebody talking all the time. I think that's a lot, at least for me, from listening, is what I could pull from it. So I appreciate you.
I thank you very much for this time.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you so
As
much.
usual.
Yes.
We'll
have to come again though and hear more about your personal story at some point, but we'll give you a break, we promise.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kika.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to our podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with friends, family, or anyone who could benefit. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your preferred platform. It helps us spread awareness, and we would be extremely grateful. You can also follow Rarely Discussed on Instagram, YouTube, as well as TikTok. If you're someone seeking diagnosis for porphyria, visit porphyriafoundation.org to receive a free doctor packet, forms for free DNA testing, and a list of doctors in your area. Stay tuned for more episodes of Rarely Discussed.